Because Stephanie, the woman he'd always carried a torch for, was sick and in the hospital. She, pregnant at 7 months, was asked by her husband to terminate the pregnancy and donate bone marrow to save his heart's desire. Family ties and love were brutally trampled in that moment. Her mother's desperate pleas fell on deaf ears. Her husband's heartlessness, she silently endured. She thought sacrificing everything would bring happiness, but instead, it brought her husband's betrayal, the other woman's humiliation, and her company on the brink of bankruptcy, transforming her from a rich young lady into a laughingstock scorned by all. That night, he came home excitedly and held me tightly. "Sarah, this is great. It's a match, you can donate bone marrow to save Stephanie." I looked into my husband's eyes and said softly, "But I'm pregnant." He said, "We can have another child later, but if Stephanie misses this chance, she'll never recover. Sarah, if you truly love me, don't let me live with this lifelong regret." I nodded. "Okay. Are you insane? The baby is already 7 months old. You're going to terminate the pregnancy? This is irresponsible to the fetus, and even more irresponsible to yourself. You're already weak, and a late-term abortion could easily cause lifelong infertility." In the exam room, Aunt Eleanor, the doctor, angrily threw a glass. Aunt Eleanor was the best OB/GYN in the city and a longtime friend of my mother. Now, close to my due date, hearing I wanted to terminate the pregnancy, she was both heartbroken and furious, unleashing a huge outburst. I was touched, but I still said firmly, "Aunt Eleanor, I don't want this baby anymore. Please help me terminate it." Aunt Eleanor sat on the chair, calmed down for a while, and called my mother. Just then, the hospital room door was pushed open. My husband walked in and said impatiently, "Not done yet? Does it take this long to get an abortion? Stephanie is waiting for the bone marrow donor." Tie-in. Aunt Eleanor quickly understood the situation. She said to me angrily, "Sarah, you're being foolish. How could you agree to something so preposterous?" I kept my head down and didn't speak. My husband looked at Aunt Eleanor with dissatisfaction. "Are you doing this abortion procedure or not? If not, stop wasting our time." Aunt Eleanor said coldly, "I will not perform such a morally bankrupt procedure." My husband shouted, "You're refusing treatment, are you? I'll report you." My husband turned and left. The moment he opened the door, I saw many patients craning their necks to look inside. When they looked at my husband, their faces were full of scorn. When they looked at me, they were full of disappointment, as if I was a lost cause. After my husband left, one older woman even came in and said to me, "Girl, don't be foolish. I heard everything. That man of yours is no good." Other patients chimed in, "That's right, girl. You're donating bone marrow to the other woman? Isn't that just helping her out? To put it harshly, it's a bit pathetic. Even someone treated like property wouldn't face this." I said softly, "You've misunderstood my husband." Aunt Eleanor sighed and closed the hospital room door. She kept asking me, "Did your husband threaten you? What did he use to force you?" She even lifted my clothes to see if I had any injuries, if I was being domestically abused. I shook my head and gave a desolate smile. "I just want to make him happy. As long as my husband is happy, I don't care." Before I finished speaking, I felt a sharp pain in my back. I turned and saw my mother sitting in a wheelchair, looking at me with tears streaming down her face. She held her cane in her hand and, without a word, hit me over the head and back. I'll kill you, you foolish girl, you unfilial daughter." I stood there, silently enduring my mother's beating. I was an only child. 3 years ago, my parents were in a car accident while inspecting a project. My mother broke a leg and has been in a wheelchair, using a cane, ever since. My father suffered multiple serious injuries and was in critical condition in the ICU. On my father's deathbed, my boyfriend proposed to me in front of him, by the hospital bed. He knelt on one knee, promising to marry me and agree the children would have my last name, and that he would care for my mother in her old age. My father was moved to tears and amended his will. Adams Industries was inherited by my husband and me, while my mother only received some property. However, my mother had no complaints. She was physically unable to manage the company and hoped that my husband and I would do well. Her biggest wish was for us to have a child soon so she could enjoy the joy of having grandchildren. But today, I had disappointed her. "Kneel down," my mother cried out. I knelt before her. My mother held my face, tears streaming down her face, and asked, "Why? If you have a hidden reason, if he has something on you, don't be afraid. Tell me, even if it costs me my life, I will stand up for you." I whispered, "Mom, it's just because I love him. I'm willing to do anything for him." My mother froze for a moment, then raised her hand and slapped me hard across the face. Just then, my husband ran in. He pulled me away and said to my mother, "Mom, don't do this. What if you hurt her? She still has to donate bone marrow later." My mother was so angry she almost fainted. She pointed at my husband, her hand trembling. "You and that Stephanie Miller are involved, do you think no one knows? I never thought you could be so cruel. Sarah is carrying your child. How can you be so heartless?" My husband's face darkened. He said coldly, "Mom, Stephanie and I are innocent. If you spread rumors like that, it's not me who loses face, it's your daughter." My mother looked at me with grief and indignation. I kept my head down, still indifferent. A trace of smugness appeared on my husband's face. I was the one who had pursued him initially. A rich young lady chasing after someone from a humble background gave him a lot of face in his circle. After we got married, I listened to him in everything and never opposed his decisions. My husband had known for a long time that he had complete control over me. Even terminating my own child and donating bone marrow to the other woman wouldn't make me object. My mother grabbed my hand and pleaded with me, "Sarah, divorce him and have the baby. This child will have the Adams name, he's our family's bloodline." I shook my head. "Mom, I'm an adult now. Let me make my own decisions, okay? If you keep pushing me, I'll have to cut ties with you." My mother froze, her face pale, as if she had aged 10 years in an instant. Just then, Mother Davis arrived. She immediately pushed my mother's wheelchair towards the door, saying, "Just terminate the child now, you can have another one later. Don't listen to the doctor's nonsense. It's just an abortion, why wouldn't you be able to have more children? I had 3 or 4 abortions before just to have a boy. My dear relative, this is a matter for the young couple, why are you interfering?" My mother was both angry and anxious, telling Mother Davis to stop. But Mother Davis wouldn't listen at all. In her haste, my mother forced herself out of the wheelchair using her cane. But she was unsteady and fell to the ground. The bag she brought dropped, revealing some baby clothes and a pair of hand-knitted baby booties. She had prepared these things for a long time. Even the hand-knitted baby booties, she had embroidered herself stitch by stitch. My mother said that if a child wears hand-knitted baby booties embroidered by an elder, they will walk steadily, run fast, and grow up healthy. But now, none of it would be needed. My mother lay on the ground, held up the hand-knitted baby booties, and gently waved them at me. "Sarah, can you really bear to do this?" I bit my lip, turned my head away, and didn't look at her anymore. I said to Aunt Eleanor, please do the surgery for me. I don't trust anyone else. Then, I grabbed the surgery consent form and, without hesitation, signed my name on it. My mother called out my name from a distance. "Sarah." She fainted. Aunt Eleanor sighed and nodded silently. She knew that even if she refused the surgery, I would find another doctor. Those doctors would be much less skilled, which would cause greater harm to my body. I lay on the operating table, enduring the intense pain of the induction, feeling as if a knife was tearing my body apart. I was sweating profusely, and my consciousness began to blur. Suddenly, something felt like it was being pulled away from my body. I heard a nurse's voice, full of regret. It was a baby boy, plump and healthy, what a pity. A tear slid down my cheek. After the induction, my body was extremely weak. But my husband forcibly transferred me to another hospital. Stephanie Miller was there. She was waiting for my bone marrow. After the transfer, I didn't see my husband or Stephanie Miller again. My mother sat in her wheelchair, busy taking care of me. Several times, I heard her crying softly in the hallway. She didn't tell me anything about my husband and Stephanie Miller, but I could piece together a general idea from the nurses' conversations. After I was brought in, my husband pounded on the doctor's desk, demanding that the bone marrow donation surgery be performed immediately. But the doctor examined my condition and didn't dare do the surgery. My physical condition was extremely poor at the time, and I was likely to die on the operating table. My husband reluctantly agreed to let me recuperate for 3 days. During these 3 days, he stayed in Stephanie Miller's hospital room, accompanying her 24 hours a day. After hearing what the nurse said, my heart felt nothing. I just stared blankly at the ceiling. My mother went to buy food. The hospital room became quiet, and I closed my eyes to rest. "Sarah, sister, you've worked hard, we came to see you." Hearing this, I opened my eyes. By my hospital bed, my husband and Stephanie Miller stood hand in hand, fingers intertwined. Stephanie Miller was wearing makeup, looking radiant. Her hospital gown had clearly been altered, fitting her perfectly. Far from looking sick, she had a kind of alluring look, almost like cosplay. It seemed her illness wasn't as urgent as claimed. Compared to Stephanie Miller, I was disheveled, my face pale, looking quite wretched. My husband's gaze was fixed on Stephanie Miller, not sparing me a glance. He naturally didn't notice that they hadn't closed the hospital room door when they entered. The cold wind from the hallway blew in, and I shivered continuously. Who let you in? Get out. My mother was back. She pushed my husband with her cane and threw the bowl of congee she was holding at Stephanie Miller. Stephanie Miller dodged it but still shrieked and hid in my husband's arms, her face pale with fright. My husband looked at my mother angrily. I respect you as an elder, which is why I've always been polite. If you continue to be so disrespectful and target Stephanie, don't blame me for being impolite. My mother was so angry she burst into tears. Just then, a tall man walked in and stood firmly by my mother's side. He said to my husband, "What? Bullying a widow and her daughter?" I recognized him. It was Uncle Robert. He was a lifelong friend of my father and had been a senior executive at Adams Industries for decades. Uncle Robert placed the nutritional supplements on my bedside table, looked at me, and his eyes turned red with distress. Then he closed the hospital room door. My husband ignored Uncle Robert, cleared his throat, and said to me, "Stephanie has something important to tell you." Stephanie Miller took out a delicate purse and pulled out a stack of documents. She handed them to me and said cautiously, "Sarah sister, please don't be offended. This kind of thing happens online all the time. Some people donate bone marrow once but then abandon the person if they get sick again later. For both our peace of mind, could you sign an agreement with me? If I need bone marrow donation again in the future, you will continue to help me." My mother started coughing violently with anger. Uncle Robert couldn't stand it anymore and shoved my husband, telling him to get out. But I just smiled and said, "It's okay, I'll sign. I'm doing this voluntarily." Uncle Robert froze there. My mother cried out in despair, "I should have died with your father back then. At least I wouldn't be so heartbroken now." At her words, my heart seized up. But I still firmly wrote down my name, Sarah Adams. My husband's face lit up with joy. He took out another document. "Sarah, you definitely won't have the energy to look after Adams Industries during this time. How about this? I'll be fully responsible for all company affairs." Uncle Robert reached out and pressed his hand firmly on the document on the table. His chest heaved violently, and he said to me angrily, "Sarah, I came specifically to talk to you about this today. This guy has been transferring company assets recently. Your father's legacy is about to be emptied out by him. If you sign this document, there will probably be nothing left of Adams Industries. He's trying to take everything from your family." I smiled and shook my head, taking the document. "Uncle Robert, you've misunderstood my husband. I love him, and he loves me. Why would he harm me? Is it any different whether the business is in his hands or mine?" I lightly signed my name. Uncle Robert knelt on the ground, a tough man, and cried mournfully, "Old Lynn, my old friend, I'm sorry. I didn't protect your family business well." After my husband got the documents, he immediately opened the door and walked out. In the cold draft, I heard him say to the doctor, "Start He surgery immediately." The doctor said softly, "But Miss Adams's body is still a bit." My husband grabbed his collar. I said, "Surgery now. If she dies, it's on me, understand? I had the surgery while I was unconscious." After returning to the hospital room, I never saw my husband again. Half a month later, I was discharged. While my mother was handling the discharge procedures, I secretly snuck home. When I walked through the front door, I froze for a moment. My husband was sitting on the sofa watching TV, holding Stephanie Miller. My husband frowned when he saw me come in, as if I were an unwelcome guest. "Why are you back?" he asked impatiently. I smiled. "I missed you." He looked annoyed. "Couldn't you have called first?" Stephanie Miller put her arm around his arm and said, "Oh, don't be angry. It's good that Sarah's sister is back. I love her seaweed soup the most." My husband glanced at me. "What are you just standing there for? Didn't you hear Stephanie?" I was sent to the kitchen to make seaweed soup for them. Their laughter came from the living room. As night fell, my husband led Stephanie Miller straight into our bedroom. I lay in the guest room, tossing and turning, unable to sleep. They didn't try to be quiet, and I could hear everything clearly. I put on my robe, got out of bed, and knocked on their bedroom door. My husband opened the door angrily, slamming it open with a bang that startled me. He was like a raging lion, pointing at my nose and roaring, "Are you sick? Why are you knocking at this hour?" I looked at him calmly. "I terminated my pregnancy and donated bone marrow to save your first love, and this is how you treat me?" He said, "You can't have children anymore, can you? We need to continue the family line. Stephanie said if she has a child, you can be the godmother. You should really thank her for being so generous. Otherwise, when you're old, you'll die on the street and no one will care." I said bitterly, what does that make me? And what does that make her? My husband sneered. I knew it, your generosity was just an act. You don't love me at all. Now you're trying to claim your status, aren't you? Sarah Adams, I know your family looked down on me, treating me like someone who agreed the children would have your last name, living off your wealth. Let's get a divorce. I'm sick of that look on your face. He was clearly prepared. He threw a document at me. I don't want anything from your family. I looked at the document. After the divorce, I could take Adams Industries, my father's company. Everything else would belong to my husband. It seemed he had already completed the asset transfer. Without any hesitation, I wrote down my name. My husband also signed, David Davis. The moment the divorce was final, Stephanie Miller's facade dropped. The seemingly delicate innocent flower of the past revealed her claws. She threw all my things out the front door and said to me, now, immediately, get out of my house. After divorcing David, I lived with my mother. My body recovered, but my heart was scarred. Stephanie Miller had gotten everything, but she didn't plan on letting me go. Every day, she sent me messages to provoke me. Sarah Adams, thank you for your bone marrow. I'm very healthy now. David brother and I exercise together every day. Sarah Adams, David brother is so strong, I love it so much. Sarah Adams, how does it feel to sleep alone? It's no one's fault but your own. Stupid people shouldn't have good lives. I replied, enjoy your prize. Stephanie Miller was clearly triggered and sent several 60-second voice messages. I didn't listen to any of them and just blocked her. I went to Adams Industries, my father's company. Only 5 employees remained. They were all veterans who had worked for my father. They were attached to the company and couldn't bear to leave. Uncle Robert's eyes were red. He said to me, the company's funds are completely gone. Adams Industries is just an empty shell now. The others didn't say anything, but the way they looked at me was a mix of sympathy, pity, and contempt. I knew that in their eyes, I was a fool, someone blinded by love, a pathetic woman abandoned by her husband. I comforted Uncle Robert and told them that everything would be okay. However, no one seemed to believe me. Uncle Robert was silent for a long time before finally saying, well, I guess it can't get any worse. That night, I was having dinner with my mother. My former mother Davis suddenly showed up. She smiled and held out a box filled with red-dyed eggs. She sat down on our sofa with a swagger, looking arrogant. You don't know yet, do you? Stephanie is pregnant. Ah, my son's life is just so good. That hen who can't lay an egg is divorcing my son. And now my son immediately has a more beautiful wife who's expecting. Isn't that infuriating? Today, I'm putting aside the past and bringing you eggs. And while I'm at it, I wish my former daughter-in-law, well, lots of kids and good fortune, heh. My mother's face was cold, and she told her to leave. Just then, there was a screech of tires outside. David, drunk, got out of a car and burst into our house. His eyes were red as he looked at me. Sarah Adams, what did you do? I looked at him coldly. I don't know what you're talking about. David cried. You knew this would happen, didn't you? You deliberately donated bone marrow to Stephanie, didn't you? My former mother Davis was stunned. She grabbed David and asked anxiously, what's wrong? Did Stephanie's illness relapse? Does she need another bone marrow donation? Don't worry, Sarah Adams signed an agreement back then. David shook his head hard and mumbled incoherently, Mom, I regret it. I shouldn't have let Sarah Adams donate bone marrow to Stephanie. I harmed Stephanie. He knelt before me, crying and rambling drunkenly, Sarah Adams, take your bone marrow back, don't hurt Stephanie anymore. I looked at the car outside, confirmed that David had driven himself, and called the police. Hello? I want to report Mr. Davis for drunk driving. My former mother Davis shrieked with anger and lunged at me, trying to hit me. But the security guards quickly arrived and pulled her away. 10 minutes later, the police arrived. After testing his blood alcohol level, they handcuffed him and took him away. Stephanie Miller getting sick was something I had actually anticipated. Ever since I got pregnant, my body had felt uncomfortable. I had checkups, but nothing was found. Later, I flew abroad specifically to undergo a very specialized test. The results showed I had a rare disease. And this disease made me unsuitable for organ donation or even blood donation. To treat this disease, my stem cells needed to be extracted and, using genetic engineering, made into specific injections to be re-injected into my body. David didn't know any of this. In fact, if he had just come to one prenatal checkup with me, or even just talked to me a little more, he would have known the truth. But he didn't. From the moment I got pregnant, he was busy with Stephanie Miller. Now, Stephanie Miller had taken my bone marrow and must have gotten sick. Initially, it would be a severe rejection reaction, then the rare disease would attack her bone marrow and, through her blood, attack all her organs. The only way to save her was to get my stem cells and, once again using genetic engineering, create the corresponding injection. But this time, I wouldn't be foolish enough to let them take everything from me again. After I finished telling my story, my mother was silent for a long time. Then she let out a long sigh. They deserve it. What goes around comes around. Then, she added with some regret, it's just a shame about the baby. I took out the injection and gave it to myself. This was the last one. After this injection, I would be completely recovered. I said to my mother, mothers with this disease can affect the fetus. Children born might have various problems. Now that I'm completely well, wouldn't it be better to have a healthy baby? My mother nodded, but her expression wasn't relaxed. I knew what she was thinking. She was worried I wouldn't be able to have children anymore. In fact, after the abortion, I had Aunt Eleanor examine me. The conclusion was that it was highly likely I couldn't get pregnant again. But, it wasn't absolute, perhaps a miracle could happen. In the following days, I poured all my energy into Adams Industries. I wanted to run my father's company well and not let his efforts go to waste. My father was gone, this was how I could honor his memory. Actually, the company's situation was better than I had expected. The business was still there. As long as we had cash flow, Adams Industries could operate and slowly recover. During that time, Uncle Robert, a few others, and I ran around seeking investment, so busy we barely had time to eat. But no one was willing to risk injecting funds into us. Some people even hinted that my earlier actions of terminating my pregnancy to donate bone marrow to the other woman had spread throughout the business world. I had become synonymous with being a foolish woman, and they couldn't trust a company owner like me. Everyone was discouraged, sitting in the office with disappointed faces. Just then, a large group of people walked in. I turned my head to look, and my face darkened. It was David and Stephanie Miller. It seemed David had been released after being detained for drunk driving. They walked in arrogantly with several bodyguards. Stephanie Miller wore heavy makeup, but it still couldn't hide her weakness and sickness. David said to me, Sarah Adams, I know you're reluctant to give up your father's company. But now you're at a dead end, aren't you, about to go bankrupt? However, I'm kind-hearted and pity you. I can invest in you and bring Adams Industries back to life. All you have to do is obey. Diantly provide your stem cells for Stephanie's injection. Before I could speak, Stephanie Miller added, besides that, we'll take 90% of the company shares, and you'll get 10%. After all, this broken company is just an empty shell now. I gritted my teeth and told them, get out. David's face sank. He said coldly, Sarah Adams, don't play hard to get. This is your only chance. No one else will invest in you besides me. Do you want your father to turn over in his grave? I said coldly, if my father's company had the Davis name, then he would truly turn over in his grave. Get out. Now. David sneered. Fine, I'll just wait for you to go bankrupt. Don't dream of getting investment. Your foolish actions have spread throughout the entire wealthy circle. Everyone knows you're foolish, pathetic, and desperate. Only an idiot would invest money in you. Just then, Uncle Robert suddenly exclaimed, Sarah, investment has come in. Oh my God, it's 300 million. Everyone immediately crowded around the computer, excited. Uncle Robert cheered in disbelief. It's an interest-free loan from Campbell Group. It's actually an interest-free loan. There are no strings attached. Adams Industries is saved. David's face turned pale. How is that possible? It must be fake. How could a major corporation like Campbell Group invest in you? Stephanie Miller sneered. Sarah Adams, you're just deceiving yourself, trying to spread false information to bargain with us? Let me tell you, no way. Just then, everyone's phones rang simultaneously. It was a push notification for major news. Campbell Group announced its full support for Sarah Adams's company. As for the reason, the heir to the Campbell Group, Ethan Campbell, only said one sentence, seeing an injustice and stepping in. The name Ethan Campbell brought my thoughts back 10 years. That's when I had just graduated from college and met Ethan Campbell at a reception. At the time, he had just returned from abroad. Although he was the only direct relative of the elder Mr. Campbell, he had no established foundation here. The extended branches of the Campbell family were secretly trying to undermine him, putting obstacles in his way, wanting to seize control of the Campbell Group. At that reception, I saw several people trying to scheme against him, wanting to humiliate him in public. I couldn't stand by and stepped forward to help him. I remember, At the time, I left him with a sentence, which was exactly that, seeing an injustice and stepping in. I never expected that after so many years, he would still remember. After the reception ended, Ethan Campbell started trying to get close to me in various ways. My mother had even subtly mentioned that Ethan Campbell wanted to arrange a marriage with me. But at that time, I was madly in love with David and didn't want anything to do with Ethan Campbell. I even called Ethan Campbell, worried that David would misunderstand, and harshly told him off, telling him to stay away and not bother me. Since then, Ethan Campbell had never appeared in my life again. I didn't expect that 10 years later, he would come to my aid when I was in desperate need. The news of Campbell Group's investment hit David like a lightning strike. He gritted his teeth and left with a harsh remark. The Campbell family must have lost their minds. Sarah Adams, don't get too proud. When they come to their senses, they'll definitely withdraw their investment. When that happens, I'll be waiting for you to come crawling back to me. I didn't care about David's threats at all. I turned to Uncle Robert and said, now that Adams Industries has funds, hire some security guards first. From now on, don't let just anyone walk in. Uncle Robert smiled and said, okay, Ms. Adams. Then, he personally led the remaining employees in escorting David and his group out. Shortly after they left, my phone rang. It was an invitation from the Campbell Group, inviting me to a business reception organized by them. The location of the reception was the Campbell Grand. This was also a Campbell family property. As I was about to enter, someone blocked my way. It was David and Stephanie Miller. Stephanie Miller said with a cold sneer, Sarah Adams, you really have some nerve. Your reputation is ruined, and you still dare to show your face in public? If I were you, I'd hide far away so people wouldn't recognize me. The tycoons attending the reception nearby watched the three of us from a distance, their faces full of amused curiosity. I said to Stephanie Miller calmly, you're the other woman, is your reputation much better than mine? Stephanie Miller's face was already pale, and hearing my words made it even whiter. She sneered. David brother and I have true love. I won, so I'm the winner. You lost, so you're a defeated dog. Sarah Adams, I know why you're here. The Campbell family must have come to their senses and withdrawn their investment, right? Are you here to beg them? To beg for money at this business reception? Let me give you a friendly reminder, you're just humiliating yourself. You won't get a single penny today. Oh, you probably can't even get in the door, let alone beg. You don't even have the right to beg. I said with a cold face, I was invited to this reception. Please move aside and stop wasting my time. Stephanie Miller let out an exaggerated cry that attracted everyone's attention. No way? You can attend this reception? She pulled out a gleaming invitation from her purse. Do you have an invitation? I was momentarily stunned. I actually didn't. At this point, the surrounding tycoons looked at me with complete mockery. Uncle Robert whispered, it must have been an oversight by the Campbell Group. I'll go ask the organizers. Just then, a man in a black suit walked quickly towards me. He said respectfully, Miss Adams, I am the Campbell family's butler. Due to the short notice, we I'll deliver your invitation in time. Thank you for gracing us with your presence. Please follow me. Everyone's eyes widened. I heard the tycoons whispering. The Campbell family butler, his status is quite extraordinary. To have him personally greet her? This Sarah Adams has some influence. Could it be that the Campbell Group didn't withdraw their investment? Just then, Stephanie Miller snorted and said, that's just the Campbell Group being overly polite. They pity Sarah Adams and don't want her to be embarrassed. But giving her face is one thing, giving her money is another. Her face isn't worth hundreds of millions. The surrounding tycoons all nodded. Stephanie Miller walked towards the entrance arrogantly. At that moment, the butler said softly to me, Miss Adams, please wait for me for a moment. I nodded. The butler walked up to Stephanie Miller and stopped her directly. Stephanie Miller's expression panicked, then she said with a hopeful look, hello, is the Campbell Group planning to cooperate with us? The butler shook his head and said with a cold expression, I just heard you slandering a distinguished guest of the Campbell Group. I'm sorry, your entry qualification has been revoked. Stephanie Miller's face instantly turned ashen. She shook the invitation in her hand. I have an invitation. The butler casually tore the invitation and said indifferently, not anymore. Stephanie Miller was almost in tears with anger. Being humiliated like this in public, she almost cursed out loud. But David grabbed her arm tightly and whispered, Stephanie, hold it in. We can't offend the Campbell Group. Watching Stephanie Miller being pulled away by David, I couldn't help but sigh. The Campbell Group is truly polite. Some people's face is worth 300 million. Some people's face isn't even worth an invitation. The surrounding tycoons let out a few chuckles. The way they looked at me became extremely friendly. After entering the reception, I found a corner, sipped my wine, and examined the fruit plate. I didn't want to socialize, but tycoons kept coming over, intentionally or unintentionally, chatting with me. What they really wanted was to discuss potential cooperation with Adams Industries. During this time, I kept feeling like someone was watching me. I looked around and found Ethan Campbell. He was standing in the distance, seemingly observing me. When he saw me looking, Ethan Campbell turned his head away somewhat flustered. I found it a little amusing. Ethan Campbell, a man who ruled the business world and always got his way, could he also be flustered like this? Had that phone call from years ago given him psychological trauma, making him afraid to approach me even now? As I was lost in thought, a cold voice sounded behind me. Sarah Adams, let's get back together. I turned around, feeling speechless, and saw David standing behind me with an impatient look. I frowned, thinking, Stephanie Miller was kicked out, and he still managed to get in. He really has some nerve. David looked at me mockingly. Sarah Adams, isn't all this for the sake of getting back together with me? You deliberately made Stephanie sick to blackmail me. You're really scheming. Fine, you win. I agree. As long as you provide your stem cells to cure Stephanie, I'll get back together with you. I rolled my eyes. No need. I won't jump into the same fire pit twice. I turned to leave, but David grabbed my arm. He said, somewhat annoyed, know when to stop. Let me tell you, my patience has limits. If you miss today, I'll never get back together with you. I pulled my arm free. Mr. Davis, let me tell you solemnly, I don't want to get back together with you. I wish you and Stephanie Miller a long and happy life together. David tried to grab me again, but Ethan Campbell had already signaled the security guards to come towards me. David weighed his options and pulled his hand back, but he said to me confidential. Why, Sarah Adams, I know what you're thinking. You just feel like I dumped you and made you lose face, right? Okay, for Stephanie's sake, I can give you some face. I shook my head, speechless, and walked away. This time, I walked directly towards Ethan Campbell. When Ethan Campbell saw me coming, he seemed a little flustered. I raised my wine glass to him and smiled. I came to thank you. Ethan Campbell managed a smile and said, I'm just glad you're not upset. I thought, the Campbell Group investing might make you feel like I was harassing you again. I let out a laugh, then winked at him, teasing, I was young and naive back then, didn't know a good person when I saw one. Young Master Campbell, you don't need to hold a grudge against me for all these years, do you? Okay, that phone call back then, I must have lost my mind and said crazy things. I apologize. Ethan Campbell's eyes lit up. So, before he could finish, the sound of a microphone echoed through the venue. We both turned simultaneously and saw David standing on the stage. He held the microphone and looked at me with deep affection, saying, Today, I want to take advantage of the Campbell family's reception to make a solemn announcement. Sarah Adams and I are getting back together. Please, everyone here, be witnesses to our love. Everyone's gaze fell on me, especially Ethan Campbell's. David stood on stage and held out his hand to me. Sarah Adams, let me be your husband again. I didn't move. David urged me, Sarah, come up. Stand by my side and accept everyone's blessings. I thought for a moment and walked towards David. A smug smile appeared on his face. After I got on stage, David took a ring out of his pocket and tried to put it on my finger. I took a step back, dodging him. While David was startled, I took the microphone. I looked at everyone and said coldly, I will reiterate one last time, I have no relationship with David Davis. The person I was in the past was blind and stepped into a trap. But from now on, I will open my eyes. I have a message for Mr. Davis, get over yourself. I am no longer the Sarah Adams I used to be. I won't be at your beck and call anymore. At that moment, applause erupted from the audience. I looked in the direction of the sound and saw Ethan Campbell applauding with an excited expression. With Ethan Campbell leading the way, the tycoons and executives all applauded vigorously. Many people nodded repeatedly. Some even said, Miss Adams has learned her lesson. After what happened recently, she will become more mature and cautious. The Campbell family's investment in Miss Adams must be due to this. I threw the microphone back to David and walked off the stage without looking back. David suddenly roared furiously, Sarah Adams, how dare you refuse me? Have you forgotten how you pursued me back then? Have you forgotten how humble you used to be? Sarah Adams, this is your last chance. I order you now, come up immediately and put on the ring. Don't play hard to get, my patience is limited. I was too lazy to argue with him and just flipped him off. David was completely enraged. He looked at everyone and said loudly, "Perhaps none of you know? Sarah Adams had a late-term abortion, her uterus was severely damaged, and she can't have children anymore. Anyone thinking of a marriage alliance with the Adams family can forget it." At his words, the entire room was in an uproar. The tycoons cursed David, calling him despicable for slandering me with such a thing. However, when they looked at me, there was also a hint of keeping their distance. Yes, no one would arrange a marriage with a woman who couldn't have children. David looked at me menacingly. "Sarah Adams, I want you to end up alone. I want you to watch Stephanie and me live a happy life together. If you don't accept my proposal, you'll just have to accept this punishment. Even if you regret it and beg me on your knees, I won't give you an chance." Ethan Campbell waved his hand, and two bodyguards roughly escorted David off the stage. Meanwhile, Ethan Campbell walked up elegantly. He took the microphone and smiled slightly at me. "Sarah, I actually liked you 10 years ago. 10 years ago, I wanted to pursue you, but you didn't agree. I could only silently watch over you and wish you well. Today, please forgive me for taking advantage of this moment. Whether you agree or not, I want to express my feelings. I still love you, just as much as 10 years ago, not one bit less." Ethan Campbell's confession instantly caused a huge stir. David's face was ashen. He kept repeating, "Impossible, impossible, you're in cahoots, you're putting on an act." He muttered to himself in self-deception, looking somewhat dejected as he was escorted out of the Campbell Grand. After Ethan Campbell's confession, I walked onto the stage under everyone's gaze. I met his eyes and could see the tension in them. Looking at that captivating face, I suddenly realized what I had missed all these years. I picked up the microphone and said earnestly to Ethan Campbell, "Ethan, 10 years ago you confessed your feelings to me. 10 years later, it seems it should be my turn to confess, but you stole my line." The tycoons below the stage chuckled good-naturedly. Ethan Campbell reached out and pulled me into his arms. He held me very tightly, as if afraid I would run away. I heard him say in my ear, "I accept your confession." His voice was very soft, but it carried through the microphone to the entire venue. It also spread across the internet through everyone's phones. Overnight, I was trending online, becoming the topic of discussion for everyone. With the Campbell family's investment and Ethan Campbell's endorsement, Adams Industries instantly exploded in popularity. Business soared, expanding at an astonishing rate. Within a few months, it had recovered to its peak size. As for David, Ethan Campbell didn't deliberately target him, but everyone in their circle knew he had offended the Campbell family. No one wanted anything to do with David, and he had no business talent to begin with. The money he had swindled from me was quickly lost. Not only that, he also accumulated massive debts. I heard he sold off Adams Industries and his property to try and cover his losses. But it was just a drop in the bucket, completely insufficient. As David went bankrupt, news about him in the circle became scarcer and scarcer, and he became an insignificant person no one paid attention to. As for me, I was busy with the IPO process and naturally didn't bother to inquire about him. Before my father passed away, he had been actively pushing for Adams Industries to go public, and now, the time was right. Because of the company's exceptional profitability, the IPO process went smoothly. On the 5th day, we decided to hold the listing ceremony. Before entering the venue, a large number of reporters were already waiting, taking pictures of me. As I was answering reporters' questions, someone suddenly pushed and shoved their way in, barging through. The bodyguards immediately shielded me. Then, I saw a skeletal woman kneeling on the ground. I strained to recognize her for a long time before realizing it was Stephanie Miller. She cried, "Sarah's sister, please spare me. I've lost my baby, and my husband is bankrupt. I just hope you'll let me get treatment. I'm in pain all over my body every day. The doctor says I won't live more than 3 months. Just give me a break, I swear, I'll never dare to steal your man again. Please, I'm begging you." Ethan Campbell beside me's face turned cold, and he said softly to the bodyguards, "What are you waiting for? Get her out of here." The bodyguards dragged Stephanie Miller away and threw her into the distance. But what she said had already spread online. Soon, I was subjected to online abuse, described by netizens as a vicious woman with a kind face and a cruel H.word who stole someone else's husband. Because of Stephanie Miller's accusations, Adams Industries' stock price plummeted and hit the limit down. Stockholders who lost money even surrounded the company entrance, throwing rocks and trash. Many even held banners demanding that Adams Industries go bankrupt immediately. The employees of Adams Industries were all worried, especially Uncle Robert, whose hair had turned much whiter. I comforted him. It's okay, Adams Industries has survived bigger storms. Are we afraid of rumors? I stayed up all night with the employees, editing a video and posting it online. The public opinion instantly flipped. Actually, the content of the video was very simple. I just truthfully recounted the grievances between David, Stephanie Miller, and myself. There was also a large amount of evidence presented. Netizens were surprised to discover that I was the victim, and that Stephanie Miller and David were the villains. The massive reversal made netizens feel they had been fooled. They immediately flooded Stephanie Miller and David's social media accounts, and negative comments dominated the entire comment section. David and Stephanie Miller panicked and simply deleted their social media accounts. Without a way to vent, netizens found their address and started retaliating against them in real life. David's mother was furious, cursing Stephanie Miller as a jinx. She argued hysterically with David, blaming him for being infatuated and fooling around with Stephanie Miller. If David had been faithful to me, he would still be wealthy now. But what happened? Stephanie Miller ruined him. His whole family was crammed into a small house, and they were being harassed by netizens. Every day, people threw trash and dead rats at their door. If they went out, people would point at them and curse. David had long regretted his actions, and being driven crazy by the constant arguments, he simply locked himself in the room and hid. David's mother, with now her to vent her anger, began to abuse Stephanie Miller. Stephanie Miller was already dying and had nothing left to lose. So, while David's mother was asleep, she stabbed her over 20 times with a fruit knife. David woke up to find his mother lying in a pool of blood, already cold. Stephanie Miller was sitting in the blood, a foolish smile on her face. The immense shock drove David completely insane. Meanwhile, Adams Industries was finally cleared of wrongdoing, and its stock price soared, rising dramatically in a retaliatory surge. I had finally fulfilled my father's long-held wish. With everything settled, Ethan Campbell gave me a grand wedding. At the wedding, my mother's eyes were full of tears, and she looked completely relieved. And looking at Ethan Campbell, I suddenly understood what it meant to be loved. After we got married, Ethan Campbell continued to be incredibly good to me. We were inseparable, practically glued to each other. One time, I wasn't feeling well, and Ethan Campbell was incredibly anxious, immediately taking me to the hospital. After the checkup, just as we were leaving the hospital, we ran into a disheveled and dirty beggar. He was clearly mentally unstable, kneeling on the ground, muttering aimlessly, "Give me some money. My wife is Sarah Adams from the listed company, we'll repay you." Only then did I realize that this deranged beggar was David. Ever since Mother Davis was killed and Stephanie Miller died in prison from her illness, he had gone completely mad. Ethan Campbell shook his head and said to me, "Let's go." I nodded and followed him into the Maybach. Just then, my phone rang. It was Aunt Eleanor's excited voice. "Sarah, the test results just came back. You're not sick, you're pregnant." I was both surprised and overjoyed, thanking Aunt Eleanor incoherently. It was because of her skilled surgery back then that I was able to get pregnant again. After hanging up, Ethan Campbell looked at me with a smug expression. "Well, isn't your husband amazing?" I rolled my eyes. "Oh, please." We looked at each other and smiled. The car was filled with a sweet atmosphere.